my friends! Yes! Now, whilst I've been here on your side of the mist, I've seen that you've got some very odd ideas of us elves that you've formed in our absence. And I would like to correct at least some. But first, do please remember to like, share and subscribe to this channel. It really does help, yes. And the more we spread, the more we grow, and the more legends we can share, yes. And the more you can learn about elves. Now, the tale that I have for you today tells of how kind behaviour will always be rewarded in, well, one way or another. So, if you're ready, I'll tell you the tale of the Elves and the Shoemaker. Yes. Yes. Once an age ago, there lived a kindly shoemaker. He had no wife or children, but his shoes were so popular that he was never lonely. Even the king was often seen visiting his shop. For many years, the shopkeeper lived a happy and prosperous life. But then everything changed. A new king was crowned, and he hated the shoemaker's creations, deemed them to be ugly and old-fashioned. Gradually, his popularity waned, until he regularly went days without a single customer. One night, he opened his workshop and was horrified to see that he only had enough leather to make one pair of shoes. So downtrodden was the shoemaker that he couldn't face making them. He packed up the workshop and left out the meagre scraps from his meal, a habit he had formed from when he had plenty of leftovers to leave to the poor. Then he wearily went to bed, knowing that when he shut the shop the next day, it would most likely be for good. The next morning, the shoemaker entered his workshop, determined to make his final pair of shoes the finest yet. To his enormous surprise, however, a beautiful pair of shoes lay finished on the bench. The shoemaker gently picked them up and turned them over in his hands. He had never seen such a well-made pair of shoes in his life. He looked around to see if there was a note to tell him who had made them. But there was nothing. Quickly, the shoemaker put them in the window and opened the shop. A couple of hours later, a customer tried the shoes on. They were so comfortable and well-made that he insisted he wear them out of the shop to show off. He paid twice what the shoemaker had asked for. The shoemaker couldn't believe his luck. He rushed out and bought enough leather for 2 pairs of shoes. That night, the shoemaker decided to see if the wonderful mystery would repeat itself. Lo and behold, the next morning there were 2 pairs of shoes laying there, every bit as well made as the first pair. The shoemaker put them in the window and opened the shop. Less than an hour later, someone came to try on the pair. Word had spread about the first beautiful pair. Again, the shoes were sold for twice the asking price. By lunchtime, the second pair had sold too. For many weeks this continued. The shoemaker did his nightly ritual of cutting leather and leaving food, and by the morning, beautiful new shoes were waiting for him on the bench. The shoemaker longed to see who was behind this, but he was afraid that looking for this mysterious cobbler would break the spell. Soon he was once more happy and prosperous. one night, his curiosity finally got the better of him. He lay out his leather and more scraps of food than he had been able to for weeks, but instead of going to bed, he hid behind a curtain and waited. At the last stroke of midnight, 2 elves crept into the workshop. They were eating the scraps of food that the shoemaker had left out. They wore ragged cloaks and hats and were barefoot, but quickly set to work making shoes. They worked so fast that the shoemaker could scarcely make out what they were doing. Once the shoes were finished, they crept out. Head spinning at what he had just seen, the shoemaker went to bed. The next morning, once he had sold out again, the shoemaker decided that he wanted to repay the elves' kindness. They might have been happy accepting his scraps for payment, but he wanted to do something special. He made 2 pairs of shoes, 2 smart hats, and 2 warm cloaks. That night, he left his gifts with the leather and the scraps of food. Same as the previous night, the elves snuck in at the last stroke of midnight. When the elves saw their new clothes, they danced with excitement, threw them on, and made their finest pairs of shoes yet. Then they vanished into the night. The shoemaker sold all his shoes that day. He no longer needed to work. He was so rich. He shut up his shop for the final time, wondering if he would ever see his elven friends again. But he never did. Well, you see, one kind turn will always beget another. So even if at first you don't know who your kindness helps, do always do it. Yes. Now, whenever I've seen this tale on your side of the mist, the elves are always shown to be ever so small. Now, really, do I look so? No! So we can forget that one right now, can't we? I mean, I know some very tall elves, believe me. Now, if this has given you an idea for a tale of kindness given and repaid, or if you have, well, any story really, then do email me at bard.elven.tales@gmail.com with your elder, of course, and I'll make it into a video just like this one, and I'll take it back to Avalon to share with the rest of the normal-sized elven folk too, yes. Oh, and do remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel to spread these tales on, well, your side of the mist. And I'll see you soon for more Bard Elven Tales.